I haven't been this conflicted about a piece of garage gym gear in a very long time. Well, I've had both of these guys for about 6 months. I owe you guys a comparison video, and I still haven't made up my mind. But let's see if by the end of the video, if we can come to some sort of conclusion of which one is better. The Rep Fitness Blackwing or the Rep Fitness AB-5200 2.0. Let's take a look. In the world of weight benches, a lot of people can make a case that Rep Fitness is the king. Benches is what Rep built their company on. Now, the rest of their categories have caught up to their weight benches and they've significantly improved their benches over time. But when you look at their assortment and you start comparing them, two benches jump out as the best of the best. The AB-5200 version 2 and the Blackwing. These are, by most people's opinions, the two best weight benches that Rep makes, and by default, two of the best weight benches in the entire garage gym market that you can put in your gym. Well, I've had both of these for almost 6 months now. I've trained on both of them extensively. So let's take a close look at how these compare, and I'll try and give you guys some comparisons that will help you pick which one of these is better for you. And the first thing I want to say is there's really only a $100 difference between the two. So as we go through this comparison, keep that in mind. We're not comparing an inexpensive bench with a really expensive bench. We're comparing moderately expensive benches to each other. But with that said, let's take a closer look at the Rep Fitness Blackwing, the Rep Fitness AB-5200 2.0, and see which one comes out on top. Let's start with the obvious difference between the two, which is the aesthetics. Now, both of these are going to come in 7 different colors on Rep's website. As a personal preference, I like their brand new clear grind color the best. If that had been available when I ordered these, I would have ordered both of these in that color. It's cool that I can show you this one is their metallic black. This one is their metallic black with white rails. One of the differences that you'll see is while this is available in 7 colors, the cool thing about the 5200 is that they allow you to order complementary color rails. So you can order the bench itself in one color and the rails in another, like you see here with the metallic black bench and the white rails. So if you're looking for options for colors, both have it, but you're a little more customizable on the 5200. The other options that you have is the Blackwing is an flat incline decline bench regardless, whereas the 5200 2.0, that's going to be an option. Now it's going to come standard as a flat and incline. You can add a decline post at the head of the bench, which I'm going to show you on this one because this one has that will allow you to decline up to 3 different positions. So if you're looking for decline, you can do that on both of these. This one, which I'll also show you, has the ability to add the leg rollers at the top of the bench. So if you'd like a place to hook your feet, you can do that. Whereas this one, if you opt for the decline, it's not going to have the option of the rollers. So that might be an issue for you if you like to use decline, but you like to have something to hook your feet in. But that's the colors and options. Let's take a look at the actual technical differences between these two benches. Starting down here at the foot of the bench, there's a couple of things I want to point out. You're going to notice a lot of things are similar or the same on both benches. And we're going to start with this knurled handle. This knurled handle, this knurled handle, they're the same. Same aggressiveness, same width, same size. Very easy to carry the bench around. A lot of their benches before came with a slick kind of silver metal handle, which if your hands were sweaty at all, wasn't the best option. So how you pick them up and move them around is exactly the same. Now the adjustments that you're going to see, and this is going to be one of the major differences between the two, are different between the two benches. With the AB-5200, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 adjustments in the seat. And as you can see, I can just pull it up. If I want to put it back down, it's real easy to move up and down like that. Now with the Blackwing is what's called a zero gap bench. We'll take a closer look at that later, but I want to show you some of the adjustments here first. With this, there's an additional adjustment because it is meant as a decline bench. So it's going to start with a little bit of a decline option for you. And then all you have to do to lift it up, the same as this one, you just pick it up. So now this is using, instead of a ladder system, it's using a pop pin. So you are going to have to adjust the pop pin or pull the pop pin to put this back down. The other thing that you have to do, which you don't have to do on this, and I've got to be honest, this is one of the things that took me the longest to get used to when using the Blackwing. Because this is a zero gap bench, this seat not only moves up and down, but it moves forward and back to get rid of the gap. Well, the problem is if it's all the way back against the back pad, you can't adjust it. So what you find yourself doing is moving this seat there's an extra step. In order to lift up, you got to move it forward, you got to lift it up, and then you've got to pop it back close to the seat so that you don't have a gap. If you like the idea of a zero gap bench, that's the price that you pay. Now, a lot of you out there are saying, so you have to pull it now, a big deal. To some people, that's not a big deal. To me, that, like I said, that really took a long time to get used to, and I'm still not a huge fan of it. Now, I like enough other things to where I don't care about it as much as I used to, but I would really prefer, to be honest, that's just a whole lot easier to me. But that's one of the big differences. The other big difference that you'll see as I pull this up, and I'm going to show you from the top too, this seat pad on the bottom is smaller this way and smaller this way. This one is much larger, and I'll show you why, but it's also wider. I personally prefer this seat pad. It seems more comfortable to me. Now, this is more stable. It's just as far as sitting down, this is a much wider seat. So if you sit down with your legs apart a little bit, this is gonna feel a lot bigger and bulkier. Now, it's also more of a surface area to actually sit on. It supports more of your butt. So there's benefits and drawbacks to both, but quite honestly, as far as comfort goes, I think this one gets in the way a little bit less, whereas this one, you know you're sitting on kind of a big seat. The other thing I want to show you when we're down here, and again, this goes back to stability, when we look at the bottom of this, and I'm going to lift it up a little bit, maybe, we've got a UHMW pad right here, gives you a lot of stability. Both of these benches are extremely stable. If you go back and watch my comparison video of the 5200 2.0 to the 1.0, that is one of the biggest improvements they made from version 1 to version 2, is this is a very stable bench. This bench, I'm not kidding, when it's sitting down, it might as well be bolted to the ground. It feels no different between this bench, which I can actually pick up and move around, and using a bench that you might find in a commercial gym that's bolted to the ground. Part of the reason is this. So if you look, this is a much bigger front foot. The whole thing is UHMW, and it spreads out much wider. It gives it much more lateral stability. There's no way this thing is gonna move. One thing that I did have to get used to is when I set up for a bench press, I'll pull my feet back underneath me, and my feet do touch this. Now, it's not where they rest when I set up for the bench, but I did have to get used to feeling something there. Now, this is flat. It doesn't get in the way. It won't get in the way of your bench. But again, if you're going from a bench like this with a small, narrow post in the front to this, you are going to see a difference when you sit down and use this bench. Now, let's take a look at a different angle. Because it's one of the biggest differences between these two benches, I want to show you the side angle of the seats and how they adjust. This one, pretty straightforward. You kind of got it from the front angle. You can literally just lift it up. The ladder system goes up. 3 sets of adjustments. You want to change it, you simply grab this handle, and it's real easy to do. With this one, you've got 2 pop pins in the mix. Now, they're both stainless steel pop pins. They're both very durable. They're not going to crack. They're not going to break. And one thing I want to point out about these pop pins, because traditionally I hate benches that adjust with, I hate pop pins in general, because typically what you find is that they don't seat well. I've been on a lot of hotel weight benches with pop pins where you think that pin is in the right spot, and then you get on the bench and it slides to the next one, or it moves just a little bit. These are very easy to use. They don't stick. They also, this one tightens down as well, which will come into play so that even if you pull it, it can't move. So these are very good pop pins. But the thing about this bench, I find myself constantly fiddling with this. So, and if you can see this gap here, you're always, because this is a zero gap bench, you're always looking to have this be no gap. So this always has to be up against this. The reason for that is, and I'm going to show you when we get to the back pads, but the back pad of the 5200 can act as a flat bench all on its own. You don't need the zero gap because the back portion is long enough to support. I'm 6'6". This back portion supports me just fine. This back portion by itself does not. The Blackwing relies on you always having the seat and the back butted up against each other so that you have enough length to support yourself on. So for me, I was so used to sitting down right here and laying back that when I first got the Blackwing, just out of habit, I would sit down here and lay back and my head would be hanging off the end of the bench. You have to have them closed, especially if you're tall, in order to get the full length of the bench and the benefit of that, which means that every time you adjust it, if I want to, oh, and there you go. So I tried to incline it, they're butted together. I'm glad that happened. So what I have to do is I have to move this out, then incline it, then adjust this to the angle that I want, then butt this back down and make sure that it's in a spot that's locked and crank it back down. Now, I'll be honest, I don't usually crank it back down, but the seat does wiggle just a little bit if you don't. So the right way to do it is that, as opposed to that. So you're in here working out, right? You shouldn't have any hesitation about doing extra work. But for some reason, those extra steps for the first 3 to 4 months I had this bench made me like this one better. Now, I am 100% used to using this bench. It's automatic. What you just saw there where I tried to raise it and it was stuck almost never happens anymore because I'm so used to using this bench. But it is something that I point out to everybody who asks about this bench because it's probably the biggest change. If you haven't ever had a zero gap bench, there's some extra steps in adjusting it. So let's take a look at these benches from the top because I want to give you a good idea of the difference in the pads because there is quite a bit of a difference. Over here, the first thing that you'll see is the gap versus no gap. But the next thing you'll see, like I mentioned before, this seat is much bigger than this seat. Now the overall length on these is about the same. So this is about the same as this, but the difference is that this seat pad comes further back versus this one, which is much smaller. So for me, I actually prefer this smaller seat to this larger seat. It's not a deal breaker. I'm definitely used to using this. And I have had some of the folks that I train here who are a little bigger than I am prefer this seat. They don't like this at all. It just doesn't support their size, we'll say. But like I said, the bigger difference is in the width of the length of the back pad. I can use this as a flat bench all by itself. I don't have to worry about the gap at all, like I said before. Whereas this one, as you can see, it's probably 4 to 5 inches shorter than this. So if you were to not close the gap, for me, I can't use this alone. I'm too tall. I'm 6'6". Now, if you're shorter than that, if you're 5'6", even if you're probably 5'10", you probably could. But you're going to spend a lot of time trying to adjust yourself to make sure that you're fully supported, as opposed to just closing the gap, screwing it down. And let me show you that too. Notice this. Remember I said before, if you don't screw it down, it wiggles a little bit. So this does wiggle just a tad. If you screw it down, it doesn't. And as I said before, this bench is the single most stable bench I've ever worked out on. I'm including the Rogue Manta Ray. I'm including bolted down benches. This is as stable as benches that are bolted to the floor. It's not going anywhere. So that's the trade-off there. As I set these up to show you the side-by-side and to try and demonstrate the adjustability as best I could, I came across another difference. Now, the AB-5200 weighs 115 pounds. Nice heavy bench. The Blackwing weighs 131 pounds. Now, they both supposedly use 11 gauge steel. I know the Rogue Manta Ray listed it's made of 7 gauge steel in some parts, and it is. When I look underneath the Blackwing, there's definitely some 7 gauge steel under there. I'm not sure why Rep didn't list it as a construction of it, but this is definitely a heavier bench. I believe it's the same weight or slightly heavier than the Manta Ray is. Between these two, this one is about 16 pounds heavier. Now, the interesting thing is all of that weight is in this end of the bench. So when you pick these two up by the handle, this one is noticeably easier to pick up and wheel around than this one. In fact, a few of the folks that I train here hate moving the Blackwing. Again, we're here to work out. I'm not sure why it's that big of a deal, but this is tougher to move around. And because of the extra weight and because the weight is up here and all these adjustments, it does make it a little bit more difficult to maneuver, to turn, to pick up. So just as a heads up, it's not a huge thing, but it is a difference between the two. And if you're already having trouble picking up and moving around a normal bench, like maybe you have the AB-3000 or something like that, this is gonna be a big jump up in weight for you. But while we're here, let's take a look at the adjustments because how these adjust, again, is a little bit different. Now, they both have knurled handles on the adjustments. The Rep has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 adjustments, and the Blackwing has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 adjustments. 11, 12 actually. So the Blackwing has 12. Now I'm going to show you something that I had to get adjusted to using the Blackwing. With the rep bench, when I want to put it back to flat, I just lifted it, it's done, right? With this one, so if it's up here and I want to put it down and I just lifted it like I would normally do, now all of a sudden I'm in the decline position. This one you actually have to look and make sure you hit that 0 degree. Once you've done it a few times, it's like putting your seatbelt on in the car. You hit it every time once you're used to it. But again, if you're going from a bench like this to a bench like this, that little extra look you have to make is going to be a difference. Well, I'm going to put this back in the decline. And I'm going to put the 5200 in decline as well. All right, so I've got them both in the decline position, and they're both at about the same angle. So if you like the idea of a slight decline, now keep in mind, when you're looking at a decline like this, I mentioned leg rollers, which I'll show you in a minute on the Blackwing. The leg rollers actually go at the top of the bench. So the way that a significant decline would work is different on this one. This slight decline is the same on both of them. The angle is about the same, the adjustability is about the same, and it's real easy to get them in and out of this decline position. Let me put them back and I'll show you a couple other things. Something that I mentioned on the comparison video between the 5200 1.0 and the 2.0 is the adjustment of this post. So I want to show you that in this video in case you didn't watch this one. This one's a little bit of a pain to get out of the decline. To put it in the decline, you just pull the pop pin and the post falls down, but it's a three-handed job to get it back up. So what you end up having to do is lift this up, rest it on your shoulder, then pull this out, get it locked in, screw it down, and then you're here. With the Blackwing, all you have to do is, again, move this out of the way, lift it up one, pop this back, and there you're back to flat. So even though there's more adjustments, I only need 1 or 2 hands to do them on this bench. So the way that it adjusts is a little bit easier on the Blackwing as far as going to the decline. Coming to the back side of the bench, you're going to see a lot of similarities. Now both have the same stopper here for vertical storage. It's attached to the seat itself, which makes it very stable when it's stored upright. The seat won't move around, it rests on the floor. This is a UHMW plastic pad, I guess you'll call it, that will keep it from damaging your floor, keep it from like a metal on metal scraping sound like their benches used to have. The width of the rear foot is the same on both of them. So the only difference as far as width of feet goes is on the Blackwing, you've got a wider front foot, but the rear feet are exactly the same. Same casters, same wheels, everything like that. The big difference is in the post. Now this is the adjustable decline post on the 5200 2.0. This is an option if you don't want decline. I think this is the $20 or $30 option, something like that. It's not a big deal, but you can get it with a fixed post if you don't plan on using any decline. On this, you don't have that because it declines a different way, but the real decline use on this, and I'll show you that when I attach the leg rollers, is where the leg rollers attach. So you've got a little slot here, you've got a screw down tightener here, and then you've got a pop pin here, and that allows you to put the leg rollers on, and I'll show you that in just a second because there's 2 ways to do them and a couple things that you can do with the leg rollers. But that's the differences from the front. There's not a ton. Like I said, both of them store vertically. I do want to show you one little thing that bugs me when I store the Blackwing vertically. Again, just getting used to all the adjustments on it, but I do want to show you because it happened to me a bunch when I first started using this bench. So I pointed out that the pad on the back of the bench is the same on both to hold them on vertical storage, but I do want to show you one difference in how they store vertically. So let's start with the 5200. That comes up. Notice this wiggled a little bit, but this seat, it's weighted to sit right there. No problem at all. It just sits where it's supposed to. And there's even a little hook here that will keep this from flopping forward on you. Let's take a look at the Blackwing and see what happens when you stand it on its end. That, the first 15, 20 times I stood this thing up, this happened. And it's not a defect in the bench, it's a defect in how I use it. It's a simple matter of making sure that there's no gap in the bench before you stand it up. But if you don't do that, be careful. This thing will flip. Let's take a quick look underneath because I think it'll show you a little bit of the difference in construction between the two. Now they're both built like a tank. They're both extremely stable. With the 5200, you've got the same gauge steel throughout, from the supports to the reinforcements to the rails. Everything's pretty much the same. What you'll notice on the Blackwing is that while it does have a lot of this 11 gauge steel, there's a lot of thicker steel reinforcing this thing. Now, I'm not a metallurgist, I'm not a steel worker, I don't know how to figure out how many gauges each thing is. All I know is that I see pieces of steel under here that are a lot thicker than the rest of the bench. So just wanted to point that out. Some people have pointed out to me that they want to go with the Rogue Manta Ray because it's got 7-gauge steel in it. If that's worth an extra $400 or $500, I believe is the difference, then go for it. I've used both. I will tell you they're both equally stable. There's no way you could tell a difference by using the bench, what gauge steel is in each one. But if the specs on a piece of paper matter to you, spend the extra $400 or $500. But otherwise, as you can see here, this thing is absolutely built like a tank. So I've mentioned a few times that the Blackwing has an optional leg roller attachment, and there's two reasons you may want to get this. Number one is if you do decline ab work, or really decline anything, if you have too much of an angle on your bench, you're gonna slide right off. So this is nice because this allows you to get up, get your legs locked, and then this allows you to get your decline ab work in. I don't ever do this, except for right now. I have back issues, and I found that decline work typically aggravates my back, so I don't do it a lot. However, what I do use this for is every once in a while, I will do some decline dumbbell presses, and I do program that for my clients as well. So this is nice for that. Let me show you the other thing that these rollers are good for, and that I've started using them for almost every single day. So I can't turn on my social medias these days. Yeah, I'm old and I call them social medias. And by the way, follow GymCrafter on Instagram and Facebook. We got some cool stuff going on over there. But I can't go to those platforms without seeing 172 commercials for something called the Nordic Hyper. If you're in the home gym space or you follow home gym stuff at all, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a bench that's designed to do a bunch of different things, but the main purpose of it is to allow you to do Nordic curls. The Nordic curls are something that will be a great way to strengthen your hamstrings. They're incredibly hard to do, but for folks in home gyms who don't have access to a hamstring curl machine, this is a great alternate to that. It's also really, really, really good for your knees. And if you've been following me at all, you know I basically am just this far from completely falling apart. Someday on one of these videos, I'll just explode and that'll be the end of it. But feel like I'm always hurt. And my knees are something that gives me problems. And Nordic curls have really helped. That combined with backward sled drags. So by flipping the leg rollers around, it allows you to do Nordic curls. Basically what you're gonna do is it allows you to hook your feet there, and then you're going to come down, and as I said, they're very hard, and then curl back up. It's a great hamstring exercise, but it's also great for your knees. So, and yes, I have to push off. Give me crap in the comments. I don't care. I can't do them on my own yet. But I do use this all the time. And it's one of my favorite things about this bench is that as cool as that Nordic Hyper is, I don't have to buy yet another piece of equipment to do a movement that's valuable to me in my training. I love that. That's something that's a huge difference between this bench and the 5200. And with that, let's wrap this video up and I'll tell you which one I think you should get. Most of the things that I bought for my home gym were bought on a budget. I've always paid attention to price versus value. It's for that reason that I don't own very much Rogue stuff. Rogue is a commercial equipment company that a lot of people buy for their home gyms, but they're priced accordingly and they're really overbuilt for what I need. So I haven't really bought anything like that. But when Rep introduced the Blackwing, and I get a little bit of an extra discount on the stuff that I buy from them. They do give me some stuff at no charge, but I did buy the Blackwing with my own money. And the reason I did, and the reason I was so excited was I had never owned one of these overbuilt, built like a tank, commercial grade pieces of equipment. And I was really excited to get one into the gym. I couldn't wait to get this thing in here. The problem was that when I got it in, I honestly hated it. It was too big, it was too bulky. The amount of adjustments that I had to do with the seat, every time I tried to use the bench, I'm like, oh, I have to adjust this, I have to pull that, I forgot to do this. And quite honestly, it was a pain in the butt, and I put it in a corner for the first month that I had it. But I wanted to give it a fair shake, and I wanted to get at least 6 months of use out of the bench before I told you guys what I thought. And this is one of the reasons why I do what I do here at GymCrafter. Now, there's a lot of home gym YouTube channels out there. And unfortunately, a lot of them, what happens is somebody sends them a product, they open it up, they take a look at it for 2 minutes, they do a review, they're on to the next review, garage gym reviews. But other people like Gluck over at Gluck's Gym, if you're not following Gluck at Gluck's Gym, he's probably my favorite home gym YouTube channel right now. And myself, and there's some other guys, Basement Brandon does a decent job. There's a bunch of good guys out there. John over at Home Gym Life, or Garage Gym Life. There's a bunch of guys doing great work out there. And the reason why we do that, and the reason why I have committed to you guys to use things for as long as I do before I get out a review, and I gotta tell you, a lot of the manufacturers don't like that. They want me to get a review out as soon as the product hits. But the reason I do it is because over time, you really get to know a piece of gear. You really get to know its ins and outs, and you get used to using it. And I'm really happy I did that with this, because quite honestly, if I had reviewed this, and in fact, there's some comments on my website and on my YouTube channel on previous videos that I didn't like this bench. But over the course of the last 5 or 6 months of using it and getting used to how the adjustments work and getting used to the different things you need to do, like I mentioned earlier in the video, it's kind of like putting my seatbelt on. I don't think about it anymore. If I need to incline it, I just move the things around and I incline it. If I need to put the leg rollers on or off, I just do it. I don't think about the knobs and the pull pins and all that kind of stuff. Once I got used to using this bench, this is the only bench I reach for when I come in to train. Now, when I train here in my gym, most of the time I'm evaluating a product. I'm usually grabbing a barbell that I don't want to be using at that time because I have a preferred barbell. I'm usually grabbing things that I'm evaluating instead of the things that I want to use. But every once in a while, when I come in and I just train for myself and I'm not shooting videos and I'm not evaluating, the things that I reach for just automatically, those are the things that I know that belong in my gym and that are good for me. So as far as my personal preference goes between the two, I really like the Blackwing better than I like the 5200, but they're both awesome. Now, for me, this is right. Does that mean it's right for you? I mentioned at the beginning, this is about a $100 upgrade from the 5200. If you start adding things like the leg rollers, you can up the price a little bit more than that, but it's not a huge price difference. So if all things are equal and the budget is an issue for you, the Blackwing is a solid choice. That said, I think that most of you, if you ordered the 5200 2.0, you're gonna love it. As far as most folks in a home gym environment, this is too much. It's too overbuilt, it's too heavy, it's too expensive, and it just isn't a good fit. You know, the folks that I have train here, they love this bench, but most of them will probably buy the 5200. And that's just because for them, it's the perfect blend of cost and stability. The stability on the 5200 2.0 is fantastic. So it's really a matter of how much do you lift, how avid of a lifter you are. I don't live my life to be in the gym. If I didn't do this for a living and I just had to buy a bench off the shelf, I would probably buy the 5200. Because I do this for a living and because I train people here, this is a better bench for me. I feel like I'm rambling, but I want to try and give you guys some real insight into which one might be better for you. And I want to make sure and drive home the point that one isn't better than the other one. One might be better for you than the other one, but this isn't good versus bad. These are the two best benches the Rep makes from arguably the best weight bench company in the world. So you can't miss with either one. Both of them are affordably priced, and I think you'd like either one. If you have more questions, drop them in the comments below. I'm happy to answer questions. If you like this type of a video, please like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff that your YouTubers ask you to do. I hate that I have to say that on every video. It bugs me, but the channel's not gonna grow unless I say those things. So if you like these kind of videos, hit the like. If you didn't like this video, put in the comments why you didn't like it. I make this stuff for you guys. I don't make it for me. So if something in here wasn't helpful, please let me know. I'm constantly trying to make each video better than the last, and it's always in an effort to be more helpful to you guys. So I've got a bunch of stuff planned and coming up. I've got some great videos planned. I've got some great videos already shot and in the can and scheduled to go, so I think you'll like those. 5-Minute Fridays up and going. And so there's lots to come. If you're still with me, I appreciate you guys hanging with me through these really long reviews. But until next time, I'll see you then. I'm Tim with GymCrafter.